Hello. Welcome to Justice for All's Connections with Coffee podcast. This is episode 14. And my name is Joel DeWitt, Executive Director at Justice for All. I have Nick LeLoux here with me, who is the Service and Learning Trip Coordinator, Outside Operations Coordinator. Takes care of a lot of things that are not necessarily in-house or in the warehouse, does that too. But welcome, Nick.
Yeah, Joel, thanks for having me on again.
Glad to have you back again. Nick's the first repeat guest, customer, whatever. Mm-hmm. So we're glad to have him on there, be able to give an update on service and learning trips and things that are happening, in connection with our partner ministries that we have around the country. So I wanted to, go over a little bit, if it's all right, sort of how, how long you been with Justice for All?
5 years now. And
5 years as of last month, if I understand.
Yep.
Okay. Because you brought in a cake. That was very good for that. So thank you for that. Yeah. So 5 years, which seemed like no time at all, honestly.
Goes by quick.
Goes so fast. But if you would, for those who didn't catch it the first time, since you were on like episode 1 or 2, would you be able to share a little bit of your testimony, where you, how you became a Christian, if that's all right?
So for me, growing up, I grew up in a Christian home.
Okay.
We attended church, on Sunday, attended youth group, and just did kind of various, I would say, normal, Northwest Iowa Christian, life. As far as having Christian parents and family members.
Okay.
So from there, I, grew up knowing who Jesus was, didn't exactly have a relationship with him. Mm-hmm. And as I kind of got older, and married, I started feeling the calling, that Jesus was calling me that the way I was living, wasn't exactly for him, and it was more just a pleasing, I guess you could say, as
sure.
Just kind of looking good, kind of in the church setting.
On the outside.
Sure. Instead of, really living for Jesus on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest part of it, I was married, and things weren't going good in the marriage, at the time. And I had my come to moment with Jesus, and at that
sure.
point, I realized that if, I didn't put all the material things and live for just what most people, I think, live their life for money, for possessions,
sure.
And lived for, for Jesus as the center, not only would I feel, full in life, but my marriage would see that as well, having Jesus as the centerpiece of the marriage. So it came to that moment where I said yes to Jesus, and from there, I started really seeing things in life and a whole different view and different picture. And from there, it became like, okay, life is so much better having Jesus as the center than it is having him on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. And that's neat. And that's what happens with folks who have a come to Jesus moment. I don't know wherever that phrase came from, but you kind of figure out like what you're doing ain't working and it's not fulfilling. So Jesus is going to turn you upside down a little bit, turn you around and just be, hey, here's how to live into your potential. And here's how to, put me at the center and put other people ahead of you, which is like the easiest thing to say.
Right.
Golly, that is hard. I mean, sometimes it's easy to just look in and be like, well, I'm going to do this for me because no one else is worrying about me. But that's not how Christians are called to live.
Absolutely. And, and then kind of asked about where that also played with, going to school.
Yeah.
So from there, I had just this constant feeling of going, at the time I thought it was just to be a pastor.
Okay.
So I kind of struggled with that just for the fact of having, being married and having kids and having this, looking at it kind of in a different picture of this is how a pastor's supposed to live, you know?
Sure.
And, like I said, it's just this outside kind of appearance that I was kind of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And So I didn't know how to pursue it. But the thing is, the longer it went, the stronger the feelings got. So long story short, I said yes to Jesus again on this, and went through seminary. And a couple of years into seminary, you know, I started here as an intern with Justice for All, and found out that Jesus, you know, wasn't calling me to be initially a pastor at the pulpit, but to, you know, be in missions. You know, and I loved what JFA stands for. I, you know, loved everybody that's here, and that's volunteers and staff members, you know, board members. And I felt very connected here. So getting the opportunity to accept this position was huge, you know, for me. And it was something that I seen my faith grow, you know, for that role, and then growing into the role as well. Yeah, definitely. No, there's certainly a spot for you. So when we talk about service and learning trips, the role that you're kind of in, at least on that part of it anyway, outside there, what maybe give folks an idea if you have a story. Well, I guess perhaps just run down the places that we're going this year, or maybe the ones in the past. I'll throw in a few questions here and there, but you know, maybe start with where typically JFA goes and what that looks like. So JFA typically starts our service and learning trips from January to it's either March or April, and I'll kind of get to that a little bit more, why it could be either of those months. But January we go to Harvest Hands, which is just outside of Juarez, Mexico. From there we're with Resplandor de Vida, and it is like a children's school out there that we go and we serve. It's a wonderful time. That you get to go, you're outside of, you know, the U.S. You're not in the most beautiful places of Mexico. You know, it's more rugged.
It's a high desert. It's a high desert.
But it still does snow there. That's the fun thing, you know, to have to tell people that.
It gets cold.
Just because you're in Mexico doesn't mean it doesn't get cold. And there, you know, we do projects, which varies from construction, painting, you know. We also go out into the colonia, which, you know, is the poor setting of people. And we get to, you know, minister to them and give some, like, rice and beans and get it, you know, just give them our testimony and hear theirs. And that's always been definitely a positive and highlight for a lot of people, because you actually get to see people have that come to moment with Jesus. Yes, being presented that. So I was there a few years ago and can totally, it'll, if you haven't been to a place outside of the U.S., the conditions that are there, that are, like, I don't know, whatever, a half hour across the border into Mexico from El Paso, like, it is, you would think it's probably not that different, but like, dirt floor, no running water. I mean, the electrical lines that they had set up for heaters and all of that, like, it was rough. I mean, the roads were terrible, if you would call them roads, and just it looks like a developing third world country, I guess, is what I would say. Absolutely. You know, and then, like you said, it is like once you cross the border, you know, it goes from night to day, you know. I mean, it is completely different, and it's now, one of the interesting things is right by the border is the University of El Paso. You know, so you see, you know, this nice, huge stadium, you know, this campus, you know, a lot of nice houses. And then you go across the border and it's just like huts, you know, and pallet houses. So which is really bizarre, you know. It's like you enter, some kind of weird. But those are real conditions. And I think it's a neat experience for people to take in, because it's not that far away from here, relatively speaking. But it gives someone a sense of what folks are living on down there, and to be able to see what the impression I got was to be able to see the reliance that people had on the Lord to provide in that sense was crazy, because I don't know that I rely on the Lord to provide for me as much as they do. Well, I know they don't as much as they do, but you know, and it's weird because, like you said, like we go and we give them rice and beans, and you know, we minister to them, and we, you know, try to pray for them. And there's a lot of times that they're like, I'm good. I want to pray for my neighbor or a family member who's sick. And you're looking around like this pallet house and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like our minds, are just like, okay, what about a bigger house? What about a bigger car?
Would you like to have running water in your house?
Right.
Like,
I know one of the guys went there and he was talking about a garage, just an addition that he was adding onto his garage. And the person looked at him and they're like, you have a casa for your car?
Yeah.
Like their mind was just blown for the fact that we put our car in a garage and they don't even have a garage. They barely have a house.
I understand that you can, I guess you can't necessarily help where you're born.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And so what you do with it though, is that's different. So it certainly will give a perspective shift to someone when you go out there. That's typically in January.
Yep, that's always right towards the end of January every year. Yep.
All right. What's the next month?
Next month is February, and where we go.
The next one. Yep.
So there, we got two of them that we go to Jackson. John and Vera Mae Perkins Foundation and the Voice of Calvary. We've been going down there, and those are some of our. Like Voice of Calvary has been our longest partner.
Yes.
They've been with us since the beginning of Justice for All. Part of their thing that, with that connection, it comes, from Dr. John Perkins, who is an incredible man. Just one of those guys that when you're around, you just feel like God wants you to pay attention, and just listen to what this guy has to say. And it's just always heavy and full on how he feeds you, just with his life and his ministry and his information.
Yeah, his story was, wow.
Yep. And, and out there, for those, we go and we serve, different places in Jackson.
Like what sort of work do you do as far as like working alongside Voice of Calvary or the Perkins Foundation? What does that look like?
So like we'll go to like different, either different ministries or different partners of Voice of Calvary that are in Jackson. And we'll do different projects. And once again, that can go from like construction, it can go to painting. Sometimes there is just various different things. I mean, I know we've gone there and did some gardening, for a church.
Yep.
We did that this past summer out there. And that is always a great place, just to go and get the, for us here in Northwest Iowa, to get the southern understanding of, just Mississippi and just kind of what they're going through. And just getting a vibe from a major city, to, small town communities that we have.
Yep.
Once again, there, the culture is different, I mean, you're dealing with the southern, southern
way of life.
Yeah, just southern hospitality way of life.
Yep.
So,
No, it's very different down there for sure.
Yep.
Is there any highlight or anything that comes to mind?
Oh yeah,
that you have, or that someone has shared with you about being on a trip down there?
One of the actually like big achievements, I guess you could say, for me, just going down there and highlight is the summer we had. Seeds of Faith Church out of Leicester went down and they brought a bunch of youth kids. Some of these kids were in high school. There's a couple girls that were there that were in college, and they are both in college for both in the medical field, just different parts of it. And after their experience of going down there and just experiencing Jackson, just experiencing missions and just how it works. The pastor and I ended up talking later on, and he told me about these two girls, and he said, they're both going to add missions to, into their major. Sure. They're going to minor
as a part of their education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, for me, just having somebody come down to one of the trips and coming out and saying, I want to do more missions was, to me, a huge highlight. It's a blessing. It's amazing just to be able to be there kind of in the front and center row and watch them, and then come back and them saying, hey, I want to do this more.
Yeah. Seeing someone change on the perspective and seeing a call in their life is going to be a longer impact than you working here, or me being here. Like, it's something that can be generational.
Yes.
In that regard. So that's pretty neat. So the next month, I know from my schooling that the next month is March. All right. So I learned March is next. What happens in March with the service and learning trips that way?
Yep. So March, this year we're going to do just Grace Covenant.
Okay.
And Grace Covenant is in Annville, Kentucky, which is Eastern Kentucky. They are a reform mission.
Okay.
So that one has the newest one, the one that we typically go to on an annual basis.
Yep.
Started a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's something that has been growing, with people coming and doing it for a first time and then saying, I want to go back. So it's great, for me for us to kick something off with a relation that we have and saying, hey, we want to do this more often. We want to do this annually. And then people returning, and not only are they returning, they're bringing kids, to me, that is one of the big benefits of, having these is getting an opportunity for grandparents and grandkids, or even parents and kids, having this experience of sharing with them and watching them grow, in Christ and have them grow in missions.
Yeah.
And just seeing that ministry grow as well and becoming more popular.
Yeah. Yeah. That's neat. So part of what we do on the warehouse side, on the caring and sharing, is we send shipments of goods out to Grace Covenant and have for as long as I've been here.
Yep.
I've been here 9 years, so it's been a long time that we've shipped stuff out there. And then I think recently, the last 3 or 4 years, have had groups go out there and work alongside their developing community. It's another one it's a different culture. They're all different cultures.
Yes. Yep.
And I guess maybe you could share what is the culture in Kentucky like a little bit.
You're down in the holler. I mean, that's
I don't even. Yes. What is a holler? Do you know?
A holler it's a valley.
Okay.
So I mean,
and the Appalachian Mountains, like they have different places that are kind of essentially cut off from other parts of it, and so then like the holler would be where you are just sort of a mountains on 3 sides, and you're just back up in there.
Right. And we talked about, or you talked about the roads, and Mexico, being bouncy and rugged, and out in Kentucky, I mean, those things wind.
Oh, yeah.
You learn, I like to tell people, don't use your GPS because it'll take you on the back roads. Mm-hmm. And the back roads are places you
could get stuck out there.
You can definitely get stuck. Actually, JFA had a bus group that went out there, and they went on the back roads. And
they did.
That bus
I had a lot of stories people told me about having the back tires sort of off part of it, and Lyle was the driver, and him working his way up and then forward and backward and making corners that are like hairpin corners around these mountain places. I'm glad I didn't know that situation happened until they all got back safely.
Right.
And then I found out about it, and I'm like, why would we do that? But yes, the roads are crazy.
But as crazy as the roads are, the people are crazy with love and crazy with Jesus out there, and it's just a great culture to be. And as far as stuff like we get to do out there, we get to work and help different people with projects at their houses. Last year, we had a couple fathers and sons actually go and help put a deck and a ramp for a woman that actually just had 2 knee surgeries. Actually, she had 3 total, but she had both of them done at that time and needed help to get up.
Better access to her residence.
Yep. And I got to go over there and kind of see it actually being finished, and just hearing how blessed she was of just having this group come and do this, and how much she appreciated and how much she loved, just on how it looked even, was great for me to just see how the ministry, we can take something and then provide it for somebody who's just ecstatic, and it
strengthens
those items.
And it strengthens the relationship that Grace Covenant has in their community, to know that there's outside people, there's an outside entity that supports them and comes in and does work to, maybe then that will strengthen that relationship, and that, Christian or not Christian or whatever, but that's something that can be a positive impact for years down the line.
Yep.
So what's the last one? I know April's the next month, and it's a little bit different with Grace Reigns, but all right. So Give us the last one. I know it's in April this year.
Yep.
Grace Reigns is the place. So share about that one a little bit.
Yeah, and the reason why Grace Reigns is in April this year and not in March, because we follow kind of with the Easter calendar.
Okay.
So that's why it could be March or April, if that's something that
Do you know how do they come up with Easter, whoever they are? Do you know how Easter lands on the day that it lands on and why
they follow
different?
It's something with the stars and the moon.
It is with the moon. I had someone explain to me once. I wish I remembered it better. But it's the first or second full moon after this certain event and that sort of thing. So that's why it's so different. Anyway. I'm not trying to tell you something. You already knew that. So there you go.
I knew part of it.
Yeah. And I don't know all of it either. So between the two of us, we got to figure it out.
Yep. We'll tune in next time.
So, So Grace Reigns, share about that a little bit. Didn't mean to get on a little tangent there.
We're good. So, Grace Reigns, is on the border of Arizona and Utah. So Colorado City, Arizona, Hillsdale, Utah. A lot of people like to call it Short Creek.
Yep.
To make it short.
In the creek or whatever.
the creek.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To even shorter. Out there, we work with a thrift store, and a church. They're in one building at the moment, working on another one.
Mm-hmm.
So out there, a lot of kind of what we do is we've been working on the new building that they're doing for the youth kids.
Yep.
And just, helping out the people in the community, as well, when we get the opportunity. But yeah.
Walking alongside a ministry to develop community out there. So this Grace Reigns does a youth program. They have a church. They have a thrift store. They're in that community and have been for how long have they been out there? It was probably 15 years, 20 years.
I would say 15.
Yeah. So it's something that I know it was relatively new when I started 9 years ago, but I think Brody and Liz and stuff probably been out there for probably at least 15 years, I would think. So they're working in community development and they're witnessing to people who are leaving a terrible cult is what I would call it. Like the FLDS that's a cult. So that's just my opinion and I'm sticking to it. So we covered all the trips and as far as at least the places that we work with. Maybe share with them what to sort of expect on when you go to one of these places, whether anywhere, or unless you got something else to add to Grace Reigns.
Grace Reigns is definitely one of another big favorite one too that a lot of people go to, just because like you were talking about with people leaving the FLDS becomes a service and learning trip, but also there kind of carries this theological understanding on top of it. So there's a little more, I guess you could say, weight and meat to it.
I've heard it's heavy. I've not been out to that one, but at some point.
I would love to have you.
Yeah. So what can people expect on a week? If I were to go on one, what am I looking at?
Yep. And all the trips kind of vary a little bit different, but for the most part, what it looks like is, we get out there on like a Friday or a Saturday, and then Sunday we always go to one of the churches,
Sure.
And, we do service and worship with them. And it changes a little bit with each culture, and that's one for me and my role.
There's all kinds of different cultures, right?
There's all different kind of cultures. There's all different types of way of worshiping. That's one of the things I love about this role and love about going to see all these because, in Juarez, the music's louder, and it's faster. And
it's a whole different language.
It's a different language, and, where here, it seems like more harmony,
Sure.
And, in Mississippi, you're going to get those, fire and brimstone preachers, that are going to keep you on the back of your seat. And out in Kentucky, you get a little more also of that kind of fire and brimstone. And then in, Grace Reigns, it's, updated,
Sure.
Kind of contemporary kind of music, kind of with it, and with also some of the hymnals, which is
interesting,
which I love. But
so Sunday's the day that you kind of worship with people in that community.
Yep.
And then during the week, I guess I know there's different projects and it changes from year to year, but I guess how does it look on a day typically? Like when you get up, what time does someone have to wake up in the morning?
A lot of times we have our breakfast at 7:00.
Okay.
You know, and depending on the trip, depending on the age of people,
sure.
I mean, some people, you know, love their bacon and eggs and pancakes, you know, we get, you know, big healthy breakfast there. You know, we've had trips that a lot of people are like, you know what, I'm more of a cereal type kind of person. And
all right.
So, you know, breakfast always kind of depends on that. Then we kind of break down kind of what does that day look like. That's also kind of a part of Sunday too at the end in the evening. That we kind of just say these are our goals, you know, and things that we're going to kind of do throughout the week. And then, you know, we break up in the groups that we need to break up in.
Sure.
And
people go to different sites possibly.
Yep.
That
could happen. And some of it is skill level. Some of it
sure.
is what interests you. So if it's, you know, for an example, like let's just throw out Kentucky, you know, if you want to go work on a project and do construction, you know, that is available. If you want to do the thrift store, because they have a thrift store,
yep.
you know, and Grace Covenant, you can go to that thrift store and serve, you know, at the thrift store, whether that's changing out the inventory or that is, you know, just, you know, kind of just doing kind of the back kind of,
moving things around.
Yep.
They have a manager of the thrift store, and they'll
yep.
give you instructions on, hey, we need these sort of updates done and move these things around and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Okay. So there's lunch in there at some point.
Yep.
There's a break for lunch. There's stuff in the afternoon. Same sort of thing. You're in the same site, that type of stuff. What happens in the evening? Is there anything that happens that way?
In the evening, you know, we kind of have our downtime. We like to have supper together, you know, or we have supper together. And then, you know, we do evening devotions. So we'll typically how I've been doing it is I'll have one of the members, you know, that are there share, you know, a devotion that they like, or whether it's a devotional they're reading or whether it's a passage that they like and want to share about. So they do that in the morning. And then in the evening, we go with devotions we go with devotions in the evening, and some of them, sometimes I have it, you know, kind of a theme kind of for the week.
Okay.
And then we have discussions on what does that passage, you know, or mean, or what does that devotion kind of say for us? What is it saying for us for that day and for kind of for the week?
Sure.
You know, and then we also go into discussions of what was the day like, you know, and that's where we like to have fun and get to hear the kind of funny stories that kind of happen throughout the day. Like we said earlier, sometimes you're broke up into 3 different groups, so you can't see, you know, all of everything. But we like to be connected that way.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I know in Juarez, one of the big things we love to do is, you know, we have games, you know, we play card games, and that varies and changes kind of from night to night.
Sure.
You know, it's just another way for us to stay connected and work together. So,
So you got each day sort of planned out, but you do different things during the day. But the basic structure is, you know, having breakfast, going to a site, and then being able to, in the evening, kind of debrief with one another and check out what some of the other experiences were that people had. Yep. If you weren't all in one group, or if you were, then, you know, further that discussion a little bit. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, how do people sign up, or how do churches get connected, or what are opportunities that look like, you know, for that way? If someone's like, you know, they see the brochure here out there, like, I want to sign up for it. What does that mean? How do I do that?
So a couple different ways. One of them is you can give Justice for All a call, you know, ask for me, you know, and then I can kind of put in the information for you on an application, or I could send you an application.
Okay.
On our brochure, it also has a QR code, you know, for those that like to do things a little more speedier on the online.
Yeah. So you can fill out an application online.
You can fill out an application online. If you just want to have me kind of just fill it out for you, I can do it with you on the phone. Yep. You know, or if you'd like, I could send it to you by mail, you know, and you could send it back.
What is covered for the week? Like, I know there's a cost. I know there's a cost, but what's the cost? What's covered? What does that look like if someone wanted to just, you know, what if I didn't know, what would I have to bring in? What do I have to do? Okay,
so what is covered, I guess, with the cost, because each of the trips are, you know, have a little bit different price.
Okay.
What is covered is your food, your lodging, you know. In there, we also like to use some of that money as a donation, you know, for the ministry that we're serving.
Yep.
So those things are covered, you know. And travel expenses are not covered, as far as that kind of goes. So that's something that you would have to cover yourself.
Yep. You got to figure out how to get down there.
Yep. Oh,
what else? Keep going. I'm not trying to interrupt you.
If you're looking at flying, or even driving, so Justice for All has a van.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of these trips I'll be actually driving down. So if it's something that you're interested on catching a ride, I can talk with you about that. That could actually help, with some of those traveling costs of just driving down, with me.
Yep.
Otherwise, if you're looking at flying, I can let you know on the flight that we're looking at the time, or you could just tell me I'm interested in flying, just find the flight for me that the rest of the group's going to be on, and I can hook you up with all the information and let you know the flight, the times, and even the airport.
So we can organize getting the group together on the right, because you're flying to El Paso.
Yep.
Yeah. And we could drive to Kentucky. You could drive to Jackson. You could drive to Colorado City, Arizona, but that's a haul.
That is a haul.
Yeah. So, flights are going to be part of it. Driving could be part of it.
Yep.
What I think is pretty cool, as someone I've been on short-term mission type stuff before, but like and one of the things I'm going back through what you were saying is Seeds of Faith. So maybe share a little bit how a church like Seeds of Faith, or another place that maybe isn't super big that wants to handle this on their own, how would they get connected, or how would that happen?
Yeah. A lot of it, just give Justice for All a call, and we can schedule a meeting, and I can sit down with them, whether it's just one-on-one, with whoever's in charge of the missions at that time, or the pastor. And we can kind of go through, kind of the different trips and what more of them are like, and kind of a deeper setting, and find out what one is probably suits what you're looking for.
Sure.
And kind of figure out a time. I know like Seeds of Faith was looking for a youth, they're looking for the summer. They're trying to find, that time also in the summer, because summers get busy with softball and baseball season, with youth. So we found a week, that works for them. We found a week, because they love Jackson. We found a week that works for Voice of Calvary.
Yeah.
And then I work alongside with kind of Voice of Calvary, and what is that week going to kind of look like, and kind of keep Seeds of Faith updated on that. I ended up meeting with the youth kids, and then kind of gave them also a debriefing of what is Jackson going to be like, what to expect, what to bring.
Yeah.
And just kind of a day-to-day schedule as well.
Ultimately, what I guess I'm saying, or what we're saying, is we can handle a lot of the logistics and have the relationship already with this ministry somewhere. Your organization or your church doesn't need to create all of those things.
Right. And as far as like the traveling plans, as far as, what are we going to be doing?
Yep.
And just trying to get all that stuff organized, like that's something that in my position here and my role here is to get all that stuff covered.
Yeah.
Even like going out and getting groceries and stuff. I know like it was, the youth group leaders were happy because typically they have to run and get groceries. They have to run and do this.
Yep.
Where that, for me,
it's already done.
You guys got to stay here, let me go run and do this. Or, hey, we're running we're low on this supplies. I get all that stuff.
Yep. So it's a way to plug in and have things already established, and you get to just experience the culture. You get to experience what God's doing down there in connection with Justice for All. But a lot of that logistic, not headache, but that's what I mean, if you're going to volunteer your time, if you're working a full-time job and you're on a missions committee and you or your church wants to organize a trip somewhere, there's a lot of time put into that.
There is.
And we have the ability to work with the things we already have in place.
Yep.
So,
and just having the relationships with each mission and ministry, and just having it for the period of time that we have. Like I said, we've been with
long-standing, a lot of them,
Voice of Calvary for over 45 years.
Yeah.
So
that's a while.
We already know kind of what that week can kind of look like, and we can, get everything kind of planned and organized right away. Even with Grace Covenant, like I said, it's new, but we as two ministries that are partners, and we've been doing it for a few years now, that have an idea of what are the yeses, what are the nos to a lot of the questions that people have.
Yep.
And being able to report back to them and saying, hey, I got a mission, or I got a church for you about this week. And then we can quickly, and a phone call or two, or maybe a couple emails, get that kind of week, what that looks like. So it speeds the process up.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of having all those questions of what are they like, what are we going to do, and things taking time, where, yes, if you work full time and then you're doing
this on the side,
on the side, so
that'd be a lot of work. Well, that's really the main thing that I wanted to cover in this episode was what trips are already out there that we do, what that looks like, kind of covering what each week does, where the places we go, when we go typically, how to get connected. I think we covered all that. Are there any things that you want to share at all, or?
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's one other thing too. I know last year we had 9 youth kids,
okay.
And that's not counting the youth group.
Okay.
So, but just between, from Harvest Hands all the way to Grace Reigns, we had 9 youth kids, and that was a great experience just to watch, whether it's parents and their kid, or kids, or grandparents and their grandkids, have that experience and get to watch them grow. Get the youth involved. Like I said, these 2 girls went to Jackson, and they came out of it and saying, you know what? My plan and my goal, for college was just a major in this and minor in this, to, okay, now how am I going to serve?
Yeah.
And getting to see some of these youth kids. I know I've met a couple of them kind of throughout the school year, and just kind of asked them on, what are your thoughts of going back to that trip? And like, they were just ecstatic and loved the idea of going back, and had that connection. Yeah. And just getting to see somebody being connected into a mission that I would love to see continue,
Right. And even if it doesn't, it plants a seed of going to a place and working alongside someone else, and putting yourself second and putting someone else first. And I think that's a way of life. That's being a Christian, but being able to see it in a tangible sense.
Yes. And seeing it in a different culture form.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I love the idea of it's just not like a racehorse with blinders on and saying, this is just the way of life, but seeing how the rest of the world and different cultures and areas actually operate and work, and have a better understanding why do they do the things that they do. Instead of having those questions, you're getting more of the answers. Yeah. From just the experience of being at the different cultures and being at these trips and going through it, a lot of times you're going, not even a lot of times, you're going to come back fuller by just receiving instead of just the giving. Yeah. So the things that you put into it, there's definitely a spiritual, fullness that comes with it, that I believe is the reason why a lot of people love going, because they have developed these connections, they have developed these relationships, and they just get this fullness, of just being there and just watching relationships grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, yeah, that's something that we are looking forward to for this coming trip season, and starting in 25 and going to those places. So if you are interested in them at all, you can visit our website that has recaps and has ways to sign up. You can give us a call. You can like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that they say. But we'll get back to you, and we'll get your information and get you connected, especially if you want to have a group, have a presentation. We can sit down with you and give you the fuller experience versus more than what this covered here. So
yes.
Yeah, that's all I had to cover, and you added in something, and unless there's something else, no. This has been episode 14 of Justice for All's Connections with Coffee. That is Nick LeLoux, Service and Learning Trip Coordinator, Outside Operations Manager, Dad, husband. One of these orders, church member down the street, all of that sort of stuff. I'm Joel DeWitt, Executive Director at Justice for All.
Father.
Also a father, also a husband, and a member of a church somewhere as well. We thank you very much for listening, and hope you found it as enjoyable as we get to enjoy and feel fulfilled in our roles, in our capacities here in this ministry. So we hope you found interest in that. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless.